now. So we're now recording this session now. So we've got the recording for everyone. So welcome everyone. I'm going to let Katrina and Donna explain the day.
Well, it's a packed day, isn't it, Donna? It's going to be wonderful. We've got some really good people, starting with you, Donna. And Donna's got a wealth of knowledge and experience in the workplace, and is here representing Neurobox.
See, look, I've got the mug.
Yes.
I've got the mug.
Well done, Arran, you're on brand.
I'm on brand today.
So we need a picture of that mug for LinkedIn.
Oh yes, we do.
And then we'll have a quick break. Then I will talk about the role of the workplace needs assessment. And as Donna said, then we'll have a quick chat about how adult dyslexia charities can really support people in the workplace. And then in the afternoon, we've got fabulous Laura Cook, Pete Jarrett. If you haven't met Pete before, he's a real expert in the field of dyscalculia. And then Liz Marple-Brewer, who's here in the afternoon, talk about the role of coaching in the workplace. So it's busy.
Packed. And of course, you see, Laura is from my neck of the woods here in Leicester as well.
Yes, she is.
So,
she is. Yes.
So we've done.
Yes.
So it's quite amazing to see. So, Donna, are you sharing your screen?
Yes, I can do.
And then do you want to start that?
Yeah. Just bear with me, guys.
That's fine. You might need to stop sharing, Katrina, so that Donna can share her slide.
Sorry. And I was just going to say, if people are dipping in and out, we will be sending the video on afterwards for the whole day to everyone.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to turn my.
Can you see that? Okay.
I can see that perfectly fine. What I'm just going to do is, just so everyone knows, I have turned captions on. So if you want to press the caption button on Teams, we're not on Teams, we're on Zoom. That's a habit. Captions has been turned on as well. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to mute myself. I think we're going to hand over to Donna. Is that correct, Katrina?
Right. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. What a pleasure this is. Lovely to have you company for this session. When Katrina and Arran asked me to talk, I thought, right, what do I want to talk about? And I thought, you know what? I want to present a session that is really at the heart, I think, of potentially what today is all about. It's about doing right by our neurodivergent community, really. And this is the title I came up with. What is a neurodivergent friendly workplace? And then almost even more importantly than that is, how do we create one? And that's really the hub of what I want to share today. As Arran and Katrina said, my name's Donna, and I'm part of the neurobox family. I've been in this community for over 20 years now, and it's such a treat to be with neurobox. I'm part of the training team there, and I also work on development, which is thinking about new ideas, pushing forward the agenda about how we decide what neurodivergent friendly is, because it constantly evolves as well. I've put my email address on here, guys. Please do keep in touch with me. Yes, I'm going to share a lot today, and you can have these slides. But as I say, this is a big old subject, and I know that you may end up with lots of questions on the back of it, and I'm more than happy to keep in touch with you. So let's get started then. A really interesting one, and maybe a controversial one, who knows? Because on the back of talking about what good looks like, and that's what essentially my session is in terms of neurodiversity, I kind of want to start with what bad looks like, if that's okay with everyone. As I say, maybe a bit controversial. We talk a lot these days, don't we, about faking it and having inclusion wash. So this idea that organizations will use neurodiversity, unfortunately, sometimes for a bit of a tick box exercise. And happily, they're few and far between, I think, but they're still out there. And that's why I wanted to start on a note about, what we want to avoid, and then from that go into what good looks like, actually. Because I think it's really important that we acknowledge that, yes, we're still on a journey with this stuff, and that lots of organisations will feel that they're delivering a neurodivergent friendly practice, but in reality, not there yet. And we know that for some of them, unfortunately, this is happening, this inclusion wash. And the words that we associate with this is this fakeness, unfortunately, virtue signaling. So there's lots of, the appropriate messaging coming from the organisation. But actually, unfortunately, when we dig deeper and maybe when we talk to individuals who were within that organisation who are neurodivergent, actually it's pretty superficial, it's hollow. Okay, and it's all those ideas that we mean where, it's almost a cosmetic box ticking exercise for some organisations. And this is really where we don't want to be, isn't it? We want to be in the opposite place to this in terms of it is real and it's authentic, and organisations acknowledge that it's an ever evolving journey that they're on. It's not just something that they do during Neurodiversity Celebration Week and then it's parked up until next time around. And that's one of my passions. I've spent many years now keeping it real. Okay. And I'd love to, hear your thoughts in the chat about other ways that we might see organisations manifest this inclusion wash. Okay, so let's go on. Because here's another slide in terms of what it means to be neurodivergent unfriendly. As I say, I'm starting this session maybe a little bit controversially because I'm talking about all the things we want to avoid. And as I say, I spend quite a lot of time talking to folks who have this experience within their workplace, that they feel that there's no time, things are too frantic. And, we get it. Sometimes in work, we do work very fast and things are frantic and we can't really always do a lot about that. I work with a lot of blue light services, the emergency services. Of course, there's times when they have, absolutely no time, every second counts. But actually, we're not always in those situations. Even in our blue light services, we're not always in emergency situations. And what we have to figure out then is when we're not in those super busy times or, emergency times, what we've got in place to support individuals who will struggle with the fact that, things are way too fast paced and they can't process and work through what their busy to-do lists are. Something else I've heard a lot over the years is people saying that, they struggle to navigate through the kind of remit, if you like, of the organisation that they work within. So beyond their busy to-do list, the kind of broader idea about where are we going in this organisation? What are our plans? What's our vision? And I think structure and context are really important for neurodivergent individuals, because I think what it does is it helps us to make sense of all the different things that we might be doing within our day-to-day working practices. Something else that, I hear a lot, and it's really sad actually when I do hear it, is about people who feel that they're invisible, who feel that they are another, this othering of them within their organization, so that they feel that, they're not heard, they're not seen, they don't see themselves across the organization. Nothing really is spoken about around neurodiversity. And if we think about inclusion wash, maybe, ironically then it is spoken about during Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and then it's not spoken about ever again. And that's, it's a really toxic way to work, actually, because what it does, I think it's really bad for somebody's well-being, their mental health in work, their productivity, and lots of layers to this, actually, in terms of the negative impact that can have. Again, something that, I'm very aware of when I go into organisations, trying to figure out what we can put into place to help them move on with their neurodivergent journey. They will often have this happening, which is this one size fits all approach. And again, that's the kind of opposite to where we want to be around neurodiversity. Yes, there's enough patterns there about what I'm going to share this morning with you guys in terms of lots of ideas about what we can do, what we can have in place, what our playbook is around neurodiversity. And then we have that, and then we stop. And then we listen to the person who's talking to us about what their specific journey is around neurodiversity. And a little while ago by Neurobox, I was asked to do this 30 and 30 top tips, 30 top tips in 30 minutes. And Neurobox had said to me, what's going to be your number one? And I said, it's listen. It's got to be. And that's always my number one. Listen to folks. And it might sound really obvious. And for some of us who have good working practices, that is at the very heart of what we do, of course it is. But actually, you still might be absolutely flabbergasted at how many organizations don't have those conversations. They don't listen to the lived experience. And we talk a lot these days about the importance of that lived experience, don't we? This last bullet point's a really interesting one as well, because it talks about hyper-focusing on the challenges, the barriers, the issues, in quotes, the problems that we might associate with neurodiversity. And I'm not saying that we can't have those conversations. Of course we do, because it's a really important part about how we support folks, figuring out how we bring down those barriers. But what we don't want is, as it says here, this hyper focus, so that all we're ever talking about when we're talking about dyslexia, ADHD, autism is problems, challenges, lots and lots of negativity. What we want is to be able to have a balanced conversation. So we also talk about, hey, let's figure out how to get the best out of you. You know, you really got these fantastic strengths. We want more of that, please. Let's figure out what we can put in place to get that from you, because this is the reason why we've recruited you in the first place. Okay, so again, maybe controversial, but this is where I wanted to start, about kind of, you know, what we want to avoid. And from that, we can start to think about, okay, what does good look like? Before I get into that, I wanted to share this as well. Hopefully, you know, anybody who's listening to this, we've kind of won the argument about why this stuff's important. But what we hope as well is that some of you may have joined because you want to find out more and you're not quite there yet in wanting to understand, you know, why this stuff's important. I put some statistics in this presentation, but actually I took them out again because I want my session to be a conversation really about why this stuff's important, what we can do around neurodiversity. I don't just want to throw lots and lots of stats at you. But that being said, increasingly now, happily, the statistics are showing that working in a neurodivergent friendly way, a neuro-inclusive way, a disability friendly way, actually is great for our people and it's great for our businesses as well. And as I say, happily, some of the stats are bearing that out now. So we've got some great ideas here of why it's important that we do develop this neuro-inclusive practice. It reduces staff turnover, we've got an increase in productivity. We will attract great staff to us, great potential new colleagues. And specifically here, you will see I've mentioned Gen Y and Gen Z. And increasingly now, we know with Gen Z, so these are our young adults, those who are late teens and early 20s, just coming into the world of work now. We know that 51% approximately of Gen Z identify as neurodivergent. And we also know that by the year 2030, we guesstimate that about 57% of our workforce will be made up of Gen Z and Gen Y. And that's not actually that long into the future now, it's only 6 years away. So lots of organisations I work with realise that this is really important for them to be working on. Yes, of course, for those of us who are in the workplace right now, but also future-proofing our organisations, because we know in the not too distant future, it's already happening, we will have our Gen Z new colleagues coming into our organisations being very comfortable and very confident to talk about being neurodivergent, and will expect in place, and quite rightly so, lots of great practice, a very inclusive way of working as well. And those of you who are lucky enough to have Gen Z in your life, and I do, my children are Gen Z talk about organisations aligning with their values, don't they? It's a remarkable generation, this one. They are very ethical and very moral, I think, a very exciting group of young people coming through. But yes, they talk about having this alignment with their values. And we know that if we're not aligned in that way around neurodiversity, then unfortunately, we suspect some of our wonderful new Gen Z colleagues will leave us and we won't be able to retain them. And this is the other part of thinking about what it means to be neuro-inclusive: retention and being more successful at managing somebody Okay, so lots here to think about the benefits of being neurodivergent friendly. And I suppose this bottom bullet point is really, the one that often wins the argument, if you like, with organisations. Because bottom line, this is a legal obligation. Whatever we might feel about some of the conversations around neurodiversity these days, we have a legal obligation to make sure that our practice is inclusive under the Equality Act. And lots of times, if I go into organisations who might be a little bit resistant around some of these new ideas, because, for a lot of us, change frightens us and we don't like to change how we work. But actually, we are under an obligation to make those changes if we are not there yet. So it's really, really important for lots of reasons. I suppose if I have to put it in a nutshell, what is a neurodivergent friendly way of working? I like these ideas as a broad idea, really, in terms of what it means to be in a good place to work if you are neurodivergent. And what I've taken these ideas from is what it means to have a sense of belonging in your workplace. And I'm really passionate about this idea of belonging. I spend a lot of time talking about belonging in connection with neurodivergent friendly practice and top tips and so on, which I'm going to kind of bring up a fair bit actually this morning, if that's okay with everyone. But back to what are we talking about in terms of having a good working practice? I think this really sums it up beautifully. It talks about it's a place where your sense of your uniqueness is accepted. And I love this word, even treasured by your organisation, that you feel accepted and you actually feel treasured. And I was talking to a group a little while ago about this, and somebody said to me, Donna, it's about feeling like you matter. And I thought, wow, what a great way to put it. It's really simple, isn't it? I matter here. I'm treasured. I feel I can be myself. And again, on the back of that you feel comfortable to share of yourself. And we talk a lot these days about bringing your whole self to work, don't we? And I think this is connected to that you feel comfortable to be yourself, share of yourself, share your opinion, you feel accepted. And again, here, you're not scared, you're not afraid. And again, we talk a lot about psychological safety in work. And I think not being scared, which sounds so basic in a way. None of us should feel frightened in work. But actually, unfortunately, again, I spend a lot of my time talking to folks who will say to me, Donna, I'm scared to share I have autism. I'm scared to tell colleagues and my manager I've got ADHD. So the fear factor is still out there, unfortunately. Here's what Jessie says. And again, I wanted through my session to thread through this lived experience because I'm passionate about this. So I wanted to have the voices of many different folks in our community to share in this way. Here's what Jessie says. She says, after many years in the world of work, the firms I've felt most at home with and really flourished are those who've really tried to value those of us with dyslexia. So obviously Jessie's got dyslexia. Good for me, of course, but also a better way to work for everyone. And I love that Jessie's shared this because I love what she says about, yeah, it's good for me. Jessie's got dyslexia. It's a good way to work for her, but actually it's good for everyone. And I think that's why this stuff, it really is a no-brainer, because when we work in a neurodivergent friendly way, it's good for all of us, because the way that we work with individuals is just great for all of our colleagues, whether they are neurotypical or neurodivergent. So as I said to you a little bit earlier, I am passionate about belonging because I think it's a perfect way to start to think about how we get it right around neurodiversity. And a little while ago, while I was doing some research about it, I found these 5 pillars of belonging. And it blew me away because I thought, wow, this is really useful to try and structure the thinking about how we get it right for neurodivergent folks, actually, with belonging at the very heart. And I'm going to pick up these 5 pillars a little bit later on when I'm talking about, some of the practical ways of how we can start to achieve a neurodivergent friendly organisation. But I wanted to just flag these with you first. So these are these 5 pillars that I think we can start to hang great practice on. So welcomed, what are we doing to welcome folks into our organisation? Known, that we feel that you're known to us, or if not, we're wanting to get to know you. That's a journey we want to go on. Included, what are we doing to make sure that you feel part of the family in this organisation? Supported, so what have we got in place in terms of our reasonable adjustments and so on? And then connected, which again, maybe it's a little bit kind of related to included. We're making sure that you don't feel isolated. We're connecting you across. Maybe we've got a network here and so on. But as I say, I'm going to pick that up a little bit later on. But this to me is the perfect recipe of what we start to think about what a neurodivergent friendly organisation starts to look like. I think the benefits of a neurodivergent friendly workplace is tenfold really. And I've already kind of started to highlight this. Yes, we know it's psychologically safe and secure place to work, and increasingly we understand the importance of that. It avoids this tick box exercise around neurodiversity because it makes practice real and honest. We encourage self-advocacy then because people feel confident enough to advocate for themselves. Yes, it raises awareness for our, in-house work, but also if we're an organisation that's very outward facing, it's great to send those messages to the communities that we serve and work with. And that we've got clear pathways through. So, that if I'm sharing with you, I have autism and ADHD, I've got those co-occurring differences, there's a path that you can take me on. Yes, you're going to listen to me, but also there's a path there about what can put in place. And I can figure out, in conversation with my organisation, what's a good fit for me. I wanted to flag this to everyone. Some of you may be aware of this piece of work. Again, in the spirit of thinking, what can we do and what's good practice? This is a really exciting piece of work whereby some of the main broadcasters and streamers here in the UK, and this is a super impressive list, everyone, isn't it? We've got Amazon Prime, the BBC, Channel 4, Disney, Sky, and so on. They came together to figure out, how they do right by the neurodivergent community in-house and also, the communities that they broadcast to. So it was neurodiversity and disability. And it was work that came around in about 2022. I think they started talking about it the year before in 2021. And it's this TAP project. Please do have a look at it if this is new information to you. It's a really exciting piece of work. The reason I wanted to share this is because from that TAP project, the organisations came up with the 5 A's framework. And when I saw this, I thought, oh, that's a great roadmap actually to think about how we get it right for neurodivergent folks. And these are the 5 A's, really interesting. As I say, I encourage you to have a Google of this if this is something you've not heard of and you'd like to find out more. But they talk about number 1 being anticipate. Anticipate that you're going to have folks who are neurodivergent and living with disability in your organisation. So what are we going to have in place? Yes, as I say, we're going to talk to those individuals, but also we want to have things in place as well. So this is this anticipation part of it. Number 2 is one of my passions, ask. So this comes with those conversations. And to me, that's the perfect double whammy. We have things in place in anticipation, and then we're going to talk to you about what you need. And some of the things that you might need might be brand new to us that we've not done before. And that's okay, because we're going to go on a journey with you. This comes down, I think, to number 3, which is assess. Assess a situation. Maybe we're going to provide assessments for the individuals, and Katrina's going to talk in a little while about workplace needs assessments and the role that that can have. But I think this assess is almost bigger than that, bigger than the assessments we might be doing individually. It's about assessing what our working practice is. It's always evolving. Number 4 is adjust. change how we work, make those adjustments. And then number 5 is advocate. So share the messages, making sure that we are raising awareness in-house around ADHD and so on. And of course, really important that we are listening and encouraging within our colleagues self-advocation as well, and people feel confident enough to self-advocate. So a nice list. I hope you found that one useful. I think again, and I won't talk too long on this one, but you'll have the slides to have a look at them. But I wanted to include this in because I think if we do all the things that we're starting to think about, using belonging as a bit of a framework, those 5 A's, that's another really good framework. These are the messages I think that we start to share with our colleagues, and then we hope with the wider community as well. We're sharing the idea that we're listening to you, that we respect the fact you've got a voice, we value you. We care. It comes back to what I said a little bit earlier, doesn't it? About, that I feel like I matter here as an individual. We're acknowledging your experiences. We're inclusive as well. And this is all connected, isn't it? And then my personal favorite one, because it's so simple, but it just sums it up in a nutshell. We get it. We get it around neurodiversity. And to me, if somebody said, Donna, in a couple of words, tell us what it means to be neurodivergent friendly. To me, I would say the message is that we get it about neurodiversity. And that's at the very heart, I think, of it. So how do we start doing this then? There's lots of great ideas there about some of the categories that we can start to consider about what we have to address around neurodiversity. So practically, we have to start to think about, okay, we want to show folks that we get it here. What does that look like in practical everyday terms? And, we spend a lot of time here at neurobox showing organisations how they can get it right. This today is a taste of that, but please do reach out if you want to find out more. This journey can, be a wonderfully exciting one to go on that supports all individuals within your organisation. It makes your organisation a great place to work. But here, is my attempt to start to get us to think about the practical things that we can do. Again, often people say to me, where do we start? And I often say culture. And sometimes some organisations are like, oh, because I know what they want from me is almost a shopping list, me saying, oh, just go and buy these things and everything will be fine. Yes, of course, sometimes you do have to go out and make purchases. That's part of the journey. But actually, if the culture isn't right within our organisation, then no matter what we purchase, however expensive the technology and so on, it won't be right at its heart. So it's really important about culture. I know it's not an easy win, and I don't say it lightly, but I say it because it's really, really important. The next question I always get asked is, okay, what's culture? Because it's invisible, and we want to try and be pragmatic and quite practical about that stuff. Where do we start? And I think it is about, how we approach neurodiversity. As it says here, we have to make sure that we have the correct conversations. We're not just always talking about areas of challenge and, in quotes, problems. Yes, it's about supporting those challenges, but we talk about neurodiversity in a positive, exciting way. And this leads to our language as well, the words that we use. I've spoke to a number of people, in recent times who said to me, Donna, can you help us? We've got a colleague who's suffering with ADHD. They've got the symptoms of ADHD. Now, what does that say about their attitude to a difference like ADHD if the words they're using are suffering and symptoms, really medical and ultimately very negative, I would argue? Let's talk about somebody, living with a neurodivergent difference rather than talking about suffering with the symptoms of whatever the difference might be. I think, we realise now increasingly that words matter. We used to have that phrase when I was growing up, I'm Gen X, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Actually, we realise that words can break your heart, isn't it? Words are really important. And I think when we're thinking about words and thinking about culture in this context, it's really, really important. Because if you're coming to me saying, hey, Donna, we hear that you're suffering with the symptoms of ADHD and that you have a mental impairment, what's that going to say to me about how I want to talk to you and be vulnerable with you about my ADHD? For me, that means I'm going to switch off, because I don't want to go there with you if you're talking to me in those ways. As well-meaning as you may be, the words that you're using is telling me messages about your attitude. And it's not a great attitude, unfortunately. So it's really important that we get educated about using the right language in our written and in all how we verbally communicate with folks as well. Then we've got some of the practical stuff: recruitment, onboarding, appraisal. There was something I posted on LinkedIn this week. It was on BBC News, actually. A professional with dyslexia had gone for a job, and he said he was left feeling worthless. That was his words, because of the experience, because of the very dyslexia unfriendly way that he had been treated. And ultimately, he'd then gone on and won a payout from tribunal. Now, the painfulness of going through tribunal is not an easy journey by any means, but I can understand why that individual will have wanted to do that, because they will have wanted to change the conversations in that organisation and then ultimately broader, because often these cases get reported in our media, isn't it? So it's really important that we think about right at the beginning, you know, before we've even got our colleague into our organisation, how are we recruiting? How are we communicating with folks? You know, are we using a dyslexia-friendly way of communicating? And the British Dyslexia Association have a great freestyle guide that's there that gives us a great heads up about, you know, how our slides should look, what font we should use, what we do in emails and so on. A great, you know, support there. I recommend that you reach out and have a look at that. It's on their website. Policies right at the top. What have we got in place? You know, are we talking about neurodiversity? Are we using the correct language? Are we making sure that, you know, we're using up-to-date language, up-to-date terminology and so on? Are we ensuring that our policies are speaking in a gender neutral way as well? You know, these are the changes that now, as we evolve and look at LGBTQIA plus rights as well, that we want to ensure that we're getting it right for all our communities. Have we got allies or champions within our organisation? You know, have we got a network? For some of our big organisations, it can be as formal as an ERG, an employee resource group. For some of us smaller groups, maybe we just have a neurodiversity network and we meet once a month on Teams with a cup of coffee and have a chat. Any of those ways that we link are really, really useful. Have we got signposting information for colleagues? Are we celebrating awareness times as well? Dyslexia and the other differences as well. Again, you know, it is a great thing to celebrate those awareness times. Yes, we just have to be careful that's not the only thing we do, because then we're drifting into almost just being a bit gimmicky, aren't we? But actually, as part of a journey, it's brilliant, especially if we can get colleagues who want to talk about their lived experience with dyslexia or ADHD during those awareness times. And something I kind of always advocate for is this audit about, okay, what have we got in place for somebody who might come to us who's saying they've got memory issues? What do we have in place here for literacy issues? What have we got in place for, you know, somebody who struggles with time blindness and we need to help them with their time management? Sometimes the answer to that might be actually not really much. And therefore we have to go and do our homework and figure out, okay, what's out there that we can put into place? Because yes, I talk a lot about, you know, chatting with the neurodivergent person themselves and having those conversations to listen, to ask them. But sometimes a neurodivergent person will say, actually, I'm not sure, I've never done this role before and I don't know where, you know, I might need some support. And they will look to us as an organisation to guide them. So again, you know, it's about us getting educated too. On this last part then of my time with you, I'm going to go through those 5 pillars actually, in terms of the practical ways that we can think about what we've got in place for this number 1, welcoming. What have we got in place to make people feel that they're welcomed? Some of the things you'll start to see that there's patterns through actually, and that's I think one of the great highlights of this work is that once you start to get an understanding of it, actually there's a pattern there that you can start to work with when we're thinking about, right, how do we create this neurodivergent friendly place to work? So some of these things I've mentioned, you know, we've got, how do we recruit? How are we onboarding folks? What's our communication like? You know, are we asking questions in a way that makes people feel comfortable to disclose? You know, for example, are we asking a question on our recruitment information saying that we value neurodivergent differences within our organisation? Please share if you're living with a neurodivergent difference, for example, dyslexia, ADHD, autism. If we phrase a question in a positive way, I would argue that we're more likely to get people to say, hey, yeah, actually I do, I've got dyslexia. More likely to disclose. And that's what we want. We want people to share of themselves and not be frightened to do so. Good practice is a matter of standard, and increasingly organisations are saying, hey, you know what, you know, speech to text software, let's just have it on all machines. Let's really show colleagues what's on Microsoft 365, whether you need it or not. Let's just show everyone, and therefore people can dip in and out and choose what's a good fit for them. It's also great for neurotypical colleagues, of course. So again, happily, we're getting to a place where we've got this baseline of excellent practice, and therefore then we build on that when people need something more specific. As I said, you know, I wanted to put real voices in this session. And here's what Emma says. She says, when my manager shared that she too had ADHD, it made me feel understood. And I thought, yes, you get me. I hope she stays my manager for a long time, because her experiences mean that she knows intuitively how to get the best out of me and be a great ally. And I think that allyship is really, really important. So a really powerful quote, I hope you agree, from Emma, about, you know, the importance of seeing yourself in other colleagues. And I guess this is linked to the idea of being known, isn't it? You know, for Emma, we want to get to know you, Emma. And then Emma feels known because then her manager's saying to her, hey, Emma, I have ADHD as well. And there is that acknowledgement between colleagues then. And you do feel that this is a good place to be. So how can we encourage that? Being listened to, that clear path again for support. So Emma's shared she's got ADHD, you know, and we're saying, okay, Emma, well, this is what we've got in place currently for that. And now let's talk with you about what else you might need. Let's, you know, figure out what's going to be a good fit for you. The allies, the champions, and Emma's talked, you know, there about the importance of having her manager as an ally. You feel that you're understood because other colleagues understand what ADHD is, autism, whatever the difference might be. So maybe we've had some great awareness training in our organisation. And also that lived experience is really valued as well. Here's Mia's lived experience. She says, I look around my organisation and I just don't see anyone else like me. I am a Black neurodivergent woman, totally proud of who I am, but it would be so powerful if there were more colleagues like me around. Sometimes I can feel incredibly isolated and I get tired of always being a lone voice. Now, this is a really interesting one because, yes, we want to encourage somebody like Mia to speak up. It's really important we've got that lived experience, you know, within our organisation as a beacon, really. What we don't want, and I've certainly seen this over the years, is that somebody like Mia is the only person who's spoken up and she becomes almost a poster person for dyslexia or ADHD or what have you. And ultimately, that's very isolating, actually, for somebody like Mia. And what it also means for our organisation is that if Mia ever leaves us, then our commitment to dyslexia is gone because Mia's gone and we've built everything on Mia. So yes, it's this balance between getting it right for our individuals in order for them to speak up and speak out, but then it's also about making sure that they're not the only one. I remember last year I did some training with an organisation and the guy I'd been chatting with had said to me, oh, Donna, I've got dyslexia. It'd be great to have you in. Can't wait. This is great awareness. And as the colleagues, I was in the teams with this person. I'll call him John. That wasn't his name, but I'll call him John. While I was in the session with John and everybody was joining, and as people were joining, they were saying, hi, John, is this awareness all because of you? And he was like, what? And that's what we don't want, isn't it? Everyone was joining, was saying, oh, this sounds interesting, John. This is because of you. And that's what we don't want, because awareness and a commitment to neurodiversity is bigger than John. It's bigger than Mia. and we want to make sure that these people feel supported. And it's a kind of almost I'm going to use the word victimization, even though I know that's a very emotive term, but it kind of is about being, you know, a bit of a kind of one-man band, one-person band around neurodiversity, and we really don't want that. What we want is that people like John and Mia feel included, okay, that their voices matter, and it's not just one person's voice, it's lots of voices, okay. We understand the barriers that's potentially in place within our organisation, and you know what, we're working hard to bring them down. Yes, we're not always going to get it right, it's a work in progress, but we've got a commitment there, and every neurodivergent person I speak to understands that and says, you know what, it doesn't have to be perfect, but show me that you're willing to go on that journey with me and listen to me. You know, our policies have got are worded and have content as they should. I've got representation in my organisation, and again, like I said, folks, patterns, neurodiversity friendly practice as a matter of standard. Here's what Stefan says. He says, I was really pleased in work when they had a call out for neurodivergent colleagues to volunteer as champions. It's made such a difference, as I know I have someone I can go to for a chat, and they always bring the neurodivergent perspective to our work. To be honest, it's made a lot of us now more confident to speak up. Total win-win. And I love that, because this, to me, Stefan's experience is completely opposite to what Mia is going through. He's got lots of people around him here who are talking, who are speaking up. You know, they've got a network of champions and so on, and that's where we need to be. We also need to make sure that Stefan and Mia and Emma have support in place. And to me, this is one of the easier ones to figure out what we do around this, because it's the reasonable adjustments. I often think of this one as it's the technology we may have in place, the changes to work in practice, whether we are encouraging folks to have a workplace strategy coach, whether we're encouraging people to have a workplace needs assessment. And as I said, Katrina's going to talk about that a little later, the role that that can play. It really can be life-changing for folks within the world of work. And then we've got these ideas of, you know, that I feel like you're respecting me, that training's been provided that can help to encourage that respect and understanding as well. This is a really interesting quote from Ravi, and one that I hear a lot of. He says, before working here, I used to leave a job after every couple of years. I just used to think that's what I did. I realise now it was because the adjustments I had in place in previous jobs weren't a good fit for me. This organisation's totally different. They actually worked with me to discuss what I needed to get the best out of me. My job has changed since COVID. They even checked in with me then too to make sure what I had in place was working. Brilliant. And this is really interesting because Ravi's had a real light bulb moment here, hasn't he? He's thought, I always thought it was me, I'm jumping from job to job. Actually, it's not me. It's actually the organisations I've worked in thus far have not been great in putting adjustments in. Now I'm in a place where there's adjustments. Yeah, I'm great here, I'm happy. And there's a constant dialogue with me to figure out, as he says here, COVID's hit. Listen, Ravi, what different ways do you need us to figure out how to still get the best out of you? And that's where we need to be with somebody. I'm so pleased Ravi shared in this way, because to me, this is why this way of working makes great people sense. You know, Ravi is happy and flourishing. We're retaining Ravi. So Ravi is staying with us as a great member of the team. And therefore, it makes great business sense as well, because it helps us with our retention levels too. And the final one here is this idea of feeling connected, that I've got a network, I feel supported, you've given me signposting information, my line manager understands me and talks to me in a way that I'm receptive to, that they're knowledgeable, and that, yeah, we've got allies and champions. I see myself in other people, and I've got these informal go-to people there. And here's what Paul says about networks. He says, having the neurodiversity network has made such a difference. You don't feel so alone and isolated. I know there are others like me here. We keep it real and value honesty too. Can't begin to tell you the positive impact that has on me. We also have some laughs along the way too, which helps. And I love that because it's about the human to human contact, isn't it? Yeah, having a few giggles, but actually you're there for the important stuff as well. That camaraderie is really important. And I think, again, when we're thinking about how we create a neurodivergent friendly workplace, networks and connections needs to be a key part of that. So on that note, I just want to say a huge thank you to you all listening to this. I hope you found it useful. I've crammed quite a bit in there because, as I said, it was a big old question and I wanted to try and leave you with lots of information. I'll make sure Katrina has the slides so that she can share with you guys.
It was fabulous. Thank you, Donna.
Oh, great stuff. Thanks, Katrina.
I think it's brilliant. It was.
No, just a couple of questions. I know people would be asking me about the statistic you came up, you showed at the beginning about 51% of the workforce being neurodivergent at the moment. Where did that come from?
So it's not at the moment, Katrina. It's 51% of Gen Z identify as neurodivergent.
Yes.
Yeah. So if people want to know the source of that, more than happy to share.
Yep.
Also, in connection with that, is the idea that by the year 2030, 57% of our workforce will be Gen Y and Gen Z, as people like me, Gen X, and our wonderful baby boomers who are still working away, step away, and we have that natural evolution in our workplace. And again, I can share the source of that.
That would be great. And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because it will no longer be a minority then, will it?
No. And of course, as Gen Y, our millennials, who are, more confident than, say, my generation, Gen X, to talk about being neurodivergent, but not as confident as Gen Z. But obviously, as we know, as the years will go by then in the 2030s, we will have more and more Gen Z who will be, in their mid-20s, in their own 30s. They will become the more dominant member of our workforce, which is the natural evolution.
Yes.
And they're very confident and comfortable to talk about being neurodivergent. And certainly when I go out and about working with organisations, it's this sense of, okay, yes, we should be getting it right now, of course, because all of us are still in the world of work right now. But, it's about one eye on the future and thinking, oh, hang on a minute, we've got a lot of people coming through who are going to be very confident to talk about being neurodivergent and will expect us to have our house in order.
Yeah, agree.
So, yeah.
I think it's fascinating. And the other point is that, I've had a John in one of my training courses as well.
Did you? Yes.
And I do make the point now when I'm going out to do training that I'm not going to talk about any particular person, or I don't want it to be focused on one particular person, because they try and make it around that person, don't they?
It is, Katrina. And this is not a niche subject, is it? There's 1 in 5 of us, we guesstimate, that's neurodivergent.
Yeah.
So, it shouldn't be, oh, John, is this because you're here, we're doing this. Actually, there's lots and lots of colleagues who will be neurodivergent, isn't it? This is not a niche issue.
No.
And certainly when Gen Z come through into the world of work more and more, yes, it will no longer be. There will be lots of Johns out there talking in these ways, isn't it? And Mias and Stefans and so on. So
definitely, so important. And I think your point about language was really important as well, about how we refer to people. And I think part of that is the fact that things like ADHD, it talks about a disorder.
Yeah.
And that's so negative, isn't it? It's starting making people feel negative right from the beginning.
Yeah, the word you use, neuroinclusive. Yeah. And that's actually, it's really interesting. You said something at the very beginning, Donna, and I've wrote the word week down because like you said, that sometimes the organizations may only talk about that in Neurodiversity Celebration Week, Dyslexia Awareness Week, or Autism Awareness Week. And I remember a comment from a young lad that I met who was autistic, and he said that really has a negative view on Autism Awareness Week because and it's kind of interesting because we have Neurodiversity Celebration Week, right, which is kind of celebrating neurodiversity, and he said actually it should be Autism Appreciation Week. But actually, because awareness week is every day. Awareness should be every day. And I thought that was quite interesting. And I think I like being neurodivergent myself. Actually, that concept of of having the week, like being dyslexic, having other tendencies of neurodiversity, actually to me always the week was quite special to me, because I felt it was a way where I could actually be as open as I am now. So I think it's fascinating.
It's a balancing act, isn't it, Arran? Because I like awareness times, but in context of, like you say, it's always awareness time, not as in this is gimmicky, oh let's do something and then it's parked up until next year and we're going to make a song and dance on social media, but we're never going to speak about it again. And unfortunately I do see some, you know, organizations or people reach out to me and say, Donna, it feels inauthentic here, it feels hollow, but outward facing my organization looks like they're doing a lot, but actually they're not. And I think it's good to have awareness times in the context of all the other things that we should be doing, which hopefully I've tried to share in my talk about all these things coming together, really.
Yeah, and I think when you look at organisations, so there's been some awareness about Dyslexia Scotland's Dyslexia Awareness campaign they're doing at the moment, which is all about they're basically using the font Comic Sans. And they're basically playing on that word. It's a really interesting campaign. It's really, actually, what they've done is really interesting about it. And I was reading this article about it yesterday, and actually, for me, they're still campaigning about awareness of dyslexia, but they're using something that's different. And I think that's the difference: is that Dyslexia Awareness Week, Autism Awareness Week, Neurodiversity Celebration Week is actually all about the campaign that you have that then should last. I being a person that's been involved in dyslexia for many years, the BDA used to do that. They used to have that concept where the campaign for Dyslexia Awareness Week used to start in January, and that was the campaign for the year. And that thing. So no,
it's interesting different ways to work. I know last Dyslexia Awareness Week, the BDA had the theme of Uniquely You. And I spent a lot of time, I was at Succeed with Dyslexia then, I'm still an ambassador for those guys, very proud to be so, talking about masking. Because to me, Uniquely You talked about being yourself, and therefore the opposite of that is masking. So I think that the themes that we can use can start conversations, isn't it, about different things. But I love what you say about the idea then it's almost a campaign that we're thinking about how we can discuss it with government and so on.
And I think that's because it's really interesting, because if all three of us have known each other a very long time, right, a good number of years, but actually I never realized how much until like Dyslexia Show 22, 23, our second dyslexia show, I never realized how much I masked. And how much I mask and how much I just actually, that's all I do all the while. I just naturally do it. And it's like, sometimes
I think people would be shocked at that, Arran, because you're very open and proud of being neurodivergent. I think that's very brave of you to still say, hey, actually I still mask.
I
figure that out about yourself.
It is. Oh no, it was a really eye-opening conversation I had, and listening to some of the talks about that, I was like, actually I do it. And it's kind of something that, like, if you go back to when the three of us used to work at the British Dyslexia Association, that word masking was never there. And it's and it's kind of interesting also that the time we've all been in this field, we started all this field of dyslexia, and we're moving into the world of neurodiversity, like how it used to be called comorbidity. We had the term co-occurring, and actually this term that has now been taken by the community, neurodiversity. It's really interesting that in the UK we've really ran with that, but outside the UK, in America, there's a lot of people that don't like that term. And I just find it fascinating. I quite like it. It's been it's a good word that makes people understand that thing. And I think that we have to just keep moving.
Arran, give us an example of how you feel you mask things.
So when I manage time is a real big thing for me. I don't see concept of time, but if I'm late for something, people don't see how I am until I get there. So when I get there, I'm all right. But actually, that time there. So I'm trying to think of a time. So mainly, it's normally I more don't mask when I'm with my family. So when I'm in that thing, so basically, if we've got to go somewhere, so if you like, my wife has to go to the hospital quite a lot, as we all know, right? So I was sitting in the office working away, waiting for my daughter to come in to say that she's going to school. Now that was my timer to say, okay, I've got to do it. Now the next 45 minutes of time, I am panicking, I'm sweating, I'm running around, I'm not saying anything, I'm not talking, I'm not being chatty, because I'm under that much pressure that I'm like, we're now going to be late, we're not going to get there, we're not going to get this done, this is not going to happen, and basically my mind is racing. But to the outside world, you don't see that, because you would never see me do that. Lucy sees it all the while, because my wife sees it all the while, because I do break down and have them moments. But it's that kind of thing, and it's like, how do I just get on with things? It is, and if there's no one around, I mask, because I don't know. Like now, really, truthfully, I can go and lie in my bed and just do nothing, because that's how I feel at the moment. But that we have to move forward and kind of keep positive about our world, about the world we live in.
Thanks for sharing that, Arran. I
Yeah.
think it's really brave.
Yeah.
And I know, times I've said to you, how are you? And you'll say, great, or whatever. And I know you're not great.
Yeah.
And again, it's that type of masking, isn't it?
Mm.
It is, yeah.
Or when you're at the show and you've got everybody coming at you.
That's an interesting thing, because when you're at an event or doing something like that, you do it. I used to work for a retail company that run 4 sales a year. So it's a clothing company that has a homeware department. I'm not saying the name of the company, but every manager, every member of staff hated sale day. Sale day for me was like the normal day, because that's my mind works at that speed anyway. So to me, I could supervise sale day quicker than anyone. I could get things done, because basically I was allowed to be a bit more brash. I was allowed to be a bit more like argumentative, go, no, just go and do it. There's no ifs or buts, go and do it. That needs doing. That round is that. I remember when I got the role of supervisor, and because I was moving the stores, and the store manager let me run sale stock. So basically, in the store we had all the stock was done somewhere else, and it was then brought in, and all I did for like 4 hours was literally every 5 minutes, which I quite like doing, pressing the page button, asking people to come and collect boxes, and just going, that goes there, and I just could do it, because that is what it's like. But then that's what I like doing. I like that concept.
But that's the whole thing about the positive, the strengths that you have, outweigh the other areas.
Yeah, what is it? Spelling parenting. I've got it in front of me. That's why I'm working. But I always I know how to spell parent. But then does it have a double T in it? Does it have it? It doesn't. But or does it? And it's just like them type of things. Are things that spelling just doesn't come to me naturally. I don't. That's the thing. So I'm looking at the time, because who is our next speaker?
Me. So we just need just 5 minutes. Maybe just everyone go and grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah. So we'll start back at what? At 6 minutes past. Is that okay?
Yes.
That's fine. I'm going to stop the recording.
We have had a little bit of a problem with the handouts. So if you didn't get the handout on the QR code, I've got it on the first slide. So don't worry. And then I've got everyone else's QR codes for later as well. So go and grab a cup of coffee, come back in 5 minutes.